This is how this comedian trolled Joe Rogan on his own show.
I have a tapeworm.
For real?
Yeah. Well, what it does, it reacts to the vibration of sound.
What are you doing over there?
God.
Are you pulling your tapeworm out? Son
Yeah.
of a bitch.
Dimitri.
You
God.
did more preparation
Joe.
for this show.
Joe, it's Dimitri.
You're such a sick
If you're a big fan of stand-up comedy, you might know about the comedian Harland Williams, who recently appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience. If you don't know, Harland is a bit of a troll in the best way possible because he will usually play jokes on people in a fun way. He recently did that while on Joe Rogan's podcast and made for one of the funniest podcast episodes I've heard in a long time. If you're curious about Harland Williams and his recent appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience and how he kept making jokes the whole time that either cracked Joe up or completely lost him, then you've come to the right place. I will be discussing this podcast episode in today's video and showing you some of my absolute favorite parts of it. So let's hop right into it. To begin with, when I say Joe Rogan got trolled on his own show, I want to clarify that I don't mean it in a negative way. It was honestly a super entertaining episode, and Joe not getting some parts where Harland was pulling his leg actually made it a lot funnier to me. Harland has done this on plenty of different occasions as well, so it's very common to see him play practical jokes on his comedy friends. Like one time he had Anthony Jeselnik on his podcast, which is called Harland Highway, and there were several moments where Harland dropped a joke that made Anthony shake his head. My favorite part was when Anthony was talking about how a cannibal feels when they kill someone and then eat them right after, and Harland interjects with a hilarious one-liner.
You get the shakes if you eat people. I don't know what it is. Did you ever see, there was a movie where
you get the fries
Denzel
too?
Washington is a
Okay, well, you're gonna. I mean, we can have. Do you want another moment of silence?
Let me just refocus.
Another one of my favorite Harland Williams moments is in a video from the Laugh Factory where he's giving advice to young comedians who are just getting into comedy, and he says some incredibly out-of-pocket stuff.
What I do is I read USA Today every morning. I pick like really good topics and I just bring them to the stage. There was an article about drive-by shooting, and I thought, how do you put a funny spin on that? And I thought, you know what, babies are noisy. What if we did drive-by shootings and eliminated babies?
Like, what the fuck is that? Good God, that's funny. So as you can see, Harland Williams is just a natural joker on and off podcasts, so it's no surprise that he would end up doing the same thing to Joe Rogan. His style of trolling actually reminds me a lot of stuff that Norm Macdonald would do to other comedians. From one Canadian doghouse owner to the next, we all get to enjoy the ride. Anyway, on Harland's episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, he would start off by talking about where he and Joe met for the first time at a Baskin-Robbins in Los Angeles, California. Then for a while they would talk about animals and some other random stuff in typical Joe Rogan podcast fashion. Then Harland has a really goofy bit about the sounds he makes when he's about to make love to a woman.
Big cats go into a Flemin. You know this?
Flemin?
I ran into problems with girlfriends because of this. Female lions or the leopards, they get ripe. You know what I mean? Ready to party. They do this thing where they smell the female scent and they... And it's like a sexual thing. And that I for some reason, I don't know why, but I do that when I'm about to get into some love making.
You do a little bit of that? Like,
And,
do you like embody the lion?
I don't know. I just have the thing.
Feel it?
And they never stick around.
The way he nonchalantly says they never stick around is absolutely priceless, and Joe's so busy trying to read the article he doesn't even catch how funny this is. There's a lot of these goofy little quips that Harland has throughout the podcast, and I'm going to highlight a few more of them throughout this video. Another one of my favorite parts was when Harland talks about lions.
Or by getting mauled by a pride of lions.
Well,
Does that mean they're gay if it's a pride of lions, by the way?
No, pride isn't always gay.
Okay, they look gay to me.
Pride didn't used to be gay. It used to be like you were proud of something.
One of them had their hair fluffed out. He looked pretty gay.
It's actually in the Bible.
This is another one of those parts that is really funny to listen to, but for some reason Joe just doesn't roll with these jokes and plays coy. Like, come on, Joe. Calling one of the apex predators of the animal kingdom gay because of their fluffy mane is pretty damn funny. I thought that deserved a laugh, but who am I to judge, you know? Anyway, Harland continues to unleash a barrage of jokes throughout the podcast, and Joe is a little less reluctant to laugh at a few of the later bits as he goes on. Then he gets to one of the funniest bits of the entire podcast, which is around the 20-minute mark, when he asks Joe if he's allowed to eat on the podcast, and then informs him that he has a tapeworm.
I brought a little something. I have to do it about every 20 minutes. I do apologize.
What is it?
I have to have an eating thing I have to do. Well, if you don't mind.
No, not at all. No.
Thank you. Oh, God.
What is your eating thing?
I have a tapeworm.
For real?
Yeah. It's about almost 4 feet. Have you ever had one?
You really do?
Yeah.
I never know with you, you know?
It's a little odd. I sort of got attached to the little fella.
Oh, you like having it now?
Well, you know, we hear all this talk about, you know, women and men can have babies. They're telling men they can have
So
children.
you got a little baby tapeworm.
So what I have to do is I have to eat.
Celery.
Well, what it does, it reacts to the vibration of sound. I just need to take a couple of bites.
Okay. Go ahead, sure. Yeah, I think they can get rid of those things, man.
No, but what I'm saying, I've grown attached to
I
Dimitri.
understand.
So at this part, Joe cannot help himself but laugh his ass off at the celery ASMR that Harland does for the podcast. I could not stop laughing about this the first time I watched it because Harland put a spectacular twist on the men getting pregnant phenomenon by saying he felt like his tapeworm named Dimitri was his baby and that he's become very attached to him. Absolutely hilarious. Joe laughs about it for a while and then proceeds to tell Harland he needs to get the tapeworm removed. And Harland keeps the bit going and tries to defend keeping his tapeworm over and over again. Then as Joe Rogan reads information about tapeworms, Harland continues to eat celery right into the microphone, and it does not stop being funny the entire podcast he does it.
Settles him down.
I think you're going to a bad doctor. I think you're getting bad advice.
These suckers can grow up to 30 feet long. Mine's a 4-footer.
Can they really get that big? How do they know how big yours is? Would they do an MRI or something? 50 feet, dude. 15 meters. The length and width of the tapeworms can vary depending upon the species. Wow.
Then Joe has a part where he mentions having a staph infection, and Harland puts him on the spot right away.
What's the worst thing you've ever had? Like the worst weird ailment?
Staph infection.
No way. How many people on your staff?
MRSA is medication-resistant staph infection.
Wow.
It's
A
really-
lot of black gospel singers get that, I hear.
MRSA?
Oh, that's Mercy. I'm sorry.
A cute little one-liner before Joe Rogan explains to the folks at home what a staph infection is. Harland also lands this other cheeky one-liner on Joe, and it made me laugh way harder than it should have.
He goes, hey, what is that in your calf? I go, I don't know, it's nothing. And he put me on antibiotics before they even got the results of the test back.
He put you on it, not your cow?
My cow.
I thought you said your calf.
Good God, man. Classic Harland Williams. Joe then contests the validity of Harland's tapeworm once again, but Harland, as all great comedians do, stays in the bit and keeps it alive. Then Joe tells Harland he needs to get rid of his tapeworm in a really funny way.
I don't want Dimitri to get upset.
You need to reach into your ass and pull Dimitri out. You know, like with your shoulders down the ground, up here, just get it.
Dude.
Get in there.
Joseph.
And give birth.
Joseph, dial it down.
This was pretty funny, but it gets even funnier towards the end when something else happens. More on that later, though. Then Harland tells Joe Rogan a story about the time he was mauled by a bear and how he lived to talk about it. The story is pretty wild, and I swear it's absolutely 100% true.
And I'm sitting there picking blueberries, and this behemoth comes flying over the hill.
So that was a grizzly bear.
It was a grizz. They roll and claw. And I've never done this, but
You're such a dork.
what do you mean?
Is that a real fucking tattoo? Let me see that again. Let me see that again.
Dude, this is not easy for me to talk about.
Okay, maybe it's not absolutely true, and I was setting you guys up a little bit, but Harland's little scratch art was absolutely hilarious, and this being his second weird bit of the podcast in only 30 minutes is freaking amazing. It's nice to see Joe actually getting a real good belly laugh every now and then from the bit, and he gets another big one when Harland reveals his other scratch.
Now, mountain lion, on the other hand, can I share something with you?
Does it involve another tattoo?
Well, no, the mountain lion.
What the is that? Did you glue those on? What the is wrong with
The mountain lion scrapes. He digs in with his claws. What?
Christ.
What is wrong with you? Can a guy have adventure stories in nature?
This was golden also because it shows that Harland at least has some awareness of the type of stuff Joe often talks about on the podcast with guests. Then around 49 minutes in, Joe is coughing and Harland offers him some celery and then something else.
Swap it.
We had a cough button. I don't think that's
There. It's working there, yeah.
Do you want to try?
No, it's just phlegm. I don't eat celery.
Please, friend.
No, thank you.
Why?
I don't have any tapeworms, and I don't enjoy celery.
Well, can't you accept
I like it
a
with peanut
gift?
butter. Do you have any peanut butter? This motherfucker might have peanut butter.
How about a cauliflower?
No, that's not the same thing.
Well, it's got the same
No,
letters
no,
in
no,
it. I thought you liked cauliflower.
No,
Well, now what am I going to do?
just put it down.
I mean, Jesus Christ, Harland has more props for this episode of the Joe Rogan Experience than Carrot Top during a headliner set. As if the celery wasn't silly enough, he pulls out cauliflower for Joe. It would have been insane if he actually pulled out peanut butter when Joe mentioned it. Then around the 51-minute mark, we legitimately have around 2 to 3 minutes of Joe and Harland doing their impressions of dogs barking back and forth. And then Jamie actually lets his dog bark into the microphone.
If calling dogs was a thing,
Yeah.
I'd have like a really good career in dog
Let's
calling.
hear your growl. You got to try that with
Poor
your wife.
Carl.
Oh, sorry, Carl.
Poor Carl.
Oh, God, he thinks he's...
This is such a strange segment, but it feels incredibly at home and normal for an episode of Joe Rogan's podcast. Another part that made me laugh really hard was when Harland explains why he believes the Matrix is 100% real. He talks about knowing a lot of people in the science community.
I got this examined. I have a lot of friends in the science community. I know a bunch of Scientologists.
Him sneaking in the Scientologist line was fantastic. Just another lovely quiff from our man Harland. Well, not my man, unless he invites me to have a chicken at his house. Furthermore, for the next hour or so, Joe and Harland would make idle conversation about a plethora of different topics, but then at the end we get a glorious ending where Harland calls back to his bit about the tapeworm Dimitri.
What are you doing over there? Are you pulling your tapeworm out? Son of a bitch. Dimitri. You did more preparation for this show.
Joe, it's Dimitri.
You're such a sick f***. You really should go to jail. You should go to jail. We should deport you. We send you back to Canada for what you've done to me. So fucking stupid. You had to see it's warm.
It's been in my
warm.
groin for 2 hours.
He had this in his pants
You
the
won't
entire
touch
time.
the cauliflower this summer. You'll touch my groin more.
I'm not into plants.
So just in time for Pride Month, Harland pulls Dimitri out of his ass, which was exactly what Joe asked him to do earlier. A great ending to the podcast, and hopefully this will be a recurring bit we will get to see again when Harland returns to the Joe Rogan Experience. What a great podcast episode this was. I walked in, I said, wow, what a great podcast. No, I'm kidding. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know this is a different style of video than usual, guys, but sometimes it's fun to watch something happen in the world of podcasts with comedians and just dissect and appreciate it. So if you guys like this type of chill content where we get to just enjoy something together, make sure to show that by giving me a thumbs up because this type of video is super fun to make. In conclusion, Harland Williams went on the Joe Rogan Experience and he trolled Joe in an incredibly funny way. And whether Joe was coy or laughing his ass off, it was a great episode and I'd love to see another episode like this with Harland Williams. What did you guys think though? Have you seen this episode of the podcast? Are you a fan of Harland Williams or have you never heard of him? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed the content, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. And I also have a Patreon with some bonus content you can check out if you want. But all in all, this was how Harland Williams trolled Joe Rogan on his own show.
Well, this Lindsay Lohan can't swim a stroke, but she sure knows every dive in town.
That one I liked.